and welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I am here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Dave Bodner. Hello, David.
Hey, Greg. How are you doing today?
I am tired, but well, it's just been a busy day. Had a whole pile of stuff to do and had to take advantage of the good weather while it was here. So, um, how was your week?
Well, my week was a little busy.
So, as you can
Yes,
see,
I was
folks,
busy this weekend. And today was spent recovering from
yes, no
said
doubt.
this weekend. So Saturday was the Pittsburgh Marathon 5K, and Sunday was the half marathon.
Yes, it was a busy week.
That was a busy week, yes. And this
Not
year,
only running it, but preparing it for it and everything else.
and then recovering from it.
Yes.
So it was a very busy week. This year they offered the chance to do what they call the back half of the marathon. Normally when you run, at least in Pittsburgh, I know everyone's a little different. With Pittsburgh, you run if you're running the half marathon, normally you run the same course as the full marathon people for the first 11 some miles. We split off, head back to the finish line, and they do the rest of the course. Well, I've done that a good amount, and they offer a chance for charity. It's a charity reason to run the back half, where you start halfway through and you just do the rest of the course. I've never done that part of the course before. So I said, hey, that sounds different and interesting. So I'll do it. And it is true, you do miss the one big hill, singular big hill, but the second half of the course is very hilly on its own.
Ah.
Second half is actually hillier than the first half.
So
So,
when you say hillier, like when you say there's more hills, or does that mean there's more hills or steeper inclines or?
um, yes,
Okay.
yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
There are more hills. They are taller hills, and some of them are steeper. Yes,
Ah, okay.
yes,
Well,
yes.
that
Because the first half of the course generally stays by the river, so you're talking relatively flat river, close to the river area. The second half, you go up the hill and in the eastern half of the city, which is on a plateau. So you have rolling hills back there.
mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think there were three hills that were 100 feet each, let alone the normal kind of up and down. So you're kind of, for a while, just kind of going up a grade and just up and up and up and up and up. And the other thing that kind of stinks, and I would say this, if I didn't understand this before I started to run races, longer races. There's a reason why they start most of these races so early in the morning. Yesterday was warm. We've had weird weather. Friday it was mid 80s, which is summer weather for us. It is not first week in May. It was exceptionally warm. So like normal start time for the Pittsburgh Marathon 7 a.m. I started my back end at 9. So my
Oh,
race
okay.
went from 9 to it was slow. So a little after 12 I finished. Normally you start at 7 and you would finish 10:30ish.
Oh yeah.
So you get that you get a lot more heat.
Yeah,
You get a
yeah.
lot more heat, especially if it's a warm day and it was humid.
Yeah.
So it just drains you a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good thing it wasn't July or August.
Oh no. I would say there's a reason why Pittsburgh has its marathon in early May,
Yeah.
and the next big race isn't until September.
Okay. Yeah. Because you know what? You and
So,
I, we just seem to have the same weather.
mhm.
Um, if it's sunny and humid down there, it's going to be sunny and humid here. If it's cold
Mm-hmm.
and rainy down there, it's going to be cold and rainy here. And I don't know why that is, but we talked about this in the last show. Our
Yeah,
weather patterns are always seem to match.
it
So
is. Yeah.
today you had a nice sunny day
Mm-hmm.
because I know that because we did. Um, so well, I mean, good on you for doing both of those events in such a short time from each other.
Oh,
Um, I mean, I keep saying this. There's no way I could ever do it. Uh, one, my lungs probably. Well, I know my lungs couldn't handle it, and two, I don't think my knees would take it.
yeah.
But
Oh no, it's something, and without going into detail too much, um, there are pacers that most long races like 10Ks and marathons will have, so you run so you know what your time's going to be.
oh yeah,
Okay, so they are basically they get to run for free. So that's their pay, is that they don't have an entrance fee and they keep up a certain pace. And normally they're spaced out. So you have, if you run this quick and this quick and this quick, that way you don't have like really fast runners trying to run over slower runners, which is
right,
which is
yeah.
not a good thing to happen. So the group I was with was a 3 hour half marathon, which was close to what I ran 6 weeks ago.
Hmm.
But they did something called a run walk method where you run for so long and walk, run
Oh
and
yeah.
walk. They're periodic. Well, if you're not training to do that, it's kind of hard because you're jogging along and all of a sudden it's like, okay, walk now. Okay, now run now. Now
Oh
walk
yeah.
now. Now, if
Yeah.
you're trained, you know, that's fine. You're used to it. I wasn't trained. I wasn't trained to do that. So I wasn't going to run the full race. I'm not in that kind of shape. I used to be, not now. So I was going to walk part of it. I figured, hey, it just got to me. It just did. And there were parts where we're uphill and they were like, okay, the timer says to run now. And I'm like, this is an uphill. I don't want to run this.
Yeah, really.
So next, I would say this: I've learned my lesson. I paid for it today. And it's like anything else, even photography related. If you know you're going to, let's say, have a big event, we're going to have a photography outing or a photo walk, and you know what you're used to doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, and then all of a sudden you're out there and you're like, I'm going to try something completely different. I've never used this lens attachment before, or I've never used this app before. I'm going to try using this new app. On this time, I'm going out on this photo walk. And we all know you don't do that. You stick with what's comfortable
Yeah.
because something's going to happen. It's going to be off. It's going to be something. It may even be a better app. If you're not familiar with the app, just don't use it.
Oh yeah,
Practice
for
with it.
sure.
You got to
Yeah.
practice. Same thing. It was my mistake. I didn't practice what I was going to do. And then around 8 miles in, my feet, my legs started to say, we're going to start cramping on you.
Mm,
And then my feet said, oh, you're doing all this start and stop. No, we don't like that.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
it's a real discipline, right? To
you got to keep it up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um,
But I've
but
already signed up for next year.
well, you know what? It gives you time to prepare, right?
It does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the worst thing about it is you'll be another year older.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
The plan is to be lighter though.
Well,
That makes a
here's
huge
hoping, right?
difference.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been trying to lose a bit of weight myself, and you know, there's this rolling joke between me and this guy at work, that guy that I work with. We have a signal to indicate when we're going to get our lunch, and it's patting our bellies. Yeah, just like that, just like a seal. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, no, it's so noisy there. Rather than yell or whatever, we could be like 50 feet from each other, and if he's doing that, then okay, he's going to the cafeteria. But so I've been busy with
Ooh. And those, I would
This.
say for those on audio, Greg is holding up a physical copy of his book on macro. Yes, a actual physical printed copy in living color.
This is the prototype. And so I'll show you the back cover, but it's going to be different.
Ooh, aw.
Um,
That's a great picture of a bee, too.
yeah, thanks. Um, so when I got like, so would they recommend that I order one to have a look,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure it's going to be okay? And I'm so glad I did that because um, I changed the design of the cover. This is still going to be the picture on the cover, but it's actually going to wrap around the whole book
Okay.
because this white spine right here, um, it'll be on the video, but so you got the front cover, there's a picture, back cover, there's a picture. On the
Mm-hmm.
spine, it's just white. And if that spine gets bound a little off, like this one is, you can see a bit of the white on the front.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean that can happen. I have worked in a printing place for 40 years and I know how these things are put together
Mm-hmm.
and I know that this can happen. So what I've done is I've redesigned it with the this picture to go wrap right around the whole book. So now no matter how
Mm.
that spine goes on, it's not going to show
Okay.
anything wrong with it.
Right.
So also what I've done is the where the margin is down the center of the book. Like I had it set for to their recommendations, a half-inch margin on each side, like in on the inside
Mm.
where the pages meet, and the text goes really close to where it's bound together, and you
Mm.
either have to really pull the book wide apart to read it. Well, that's what you have to do, and I didn't like that.
Right.
So I enlarged that margin by a quarter inch. So now it's not going to go as far into the spine of the book. It's going to be a little easier to read. But to do that, I had to kind of rearrange every page pretty well because it just changed how the flow of the
Mm.
book went. So it
Right.
basically
Right.
added a couple of pages to the book too, which is fine. But I was happy with the result. And uh today, was it today or yesterday? Today, I ordered 2 dozen to be sent to me so that I can sell them locally.
Mm.
And I'm waiting for a link to that I could send people to go and purchase the book. As soon as I have that, trust me, I'll be spreading it around. But yeah, I'm so happy to get my hands on this, and I mean, it's only been 4 years in the making.
No, that's hardly any time at all. Hardly any
Yeah,
time
yeah,
at
oh
all.
yeah. So this version is what's on the Apple Bookstore, and because I've made some changes, I'm going to make some changes in the one in the Apple Bookstore and put out like a version or a revised version, which I can do. It doesn't cost me anything. Um, so just have to sit down and do that. But yeah, I'm so happy to get it done, and it's nice to actually feel that book in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know there's a lot of people local to me that are waiting to get their hands on one because they don't want the ebook. They want an actual physical book. So that's cool. Um, and I'm just happy to have it done. So I just now I just wait for my notice that I'm on the New York bestseller list.
I mean,
You
that
can
is
always
that.
hope.
I mean, isn't that the way it's supposed to work? Step one, write book. Step two, publish book. Step three, magic occurs. Step four, fame and fortune.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the way it's set up is it's going to be so the company that I'm doing all, the printing with and that they have promotions that they do, and I've signed up for 3 promotions in July
Mm,
that, they help promote the book
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't cost me anything. It's
Oh,
just part of
that's
their
good.
part of what they do.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I forget what those promotions are exactly, but um,
Hmm.
they're uh, it's a way for them to put it out there for me somehow, and base. But other than that, though, I basically market it myself, so I got to
Right.
do all the promotion and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Well, I mean
you
that
know,
is the problem. That now it's just the problem, but that is the trade-off with self-publishing.
yeah, yeah,
Is
for sure.
that not? But it's good that you have no restrictions, but it also means you have no support or backing. That you have, I mean, professional support and backing, we should say.
Yeah, I mean,
But that means you have to do it all on your own.
I could pay this company to go even further with the marketing, but it's a little expensive, I think,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get that done, to do that. I mean, if what I do myself pans out pretty good, then I might foot the bill to help, get them to help promote it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but stores and companies like Barnes and Noble and these different places, they can buy these things at a wholesale price and put them on their shelves
Right.
all through this company. So,
Okay.
um, you know, we'll see where it goes. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but anyway, we're going to talk tonight about capturing photos of big things. And Dave, you thought of this idea. So, real quick, how did you come up with the idea? Was it
Well,
that you saw something and you thought, hey, this could be a challenge?
actually, it's because of you. Because your macro book,
Oh yeah.
and I thought, okay, well, Greg's expert on macro. He wrote the book, Macro McMillan, right?
That's what Shane calls me.
That's what Shane called it, Macro McMillan, mate. And so I figured, well, what's the opposite of macro? Big things, So we'll have the spectrum talked about. And as Ruth was asking me, she said, okay, macro is small. Well, I said, yeah, it sounds kind of weird because you would think, you use a microscope to see small things, but you're taking macro photos. So, and she even asked me, is there a photography term for taking photos of large things? And I
Hmm.
can't think of one.
I
I can't
can't
think of
either.
an equivalent of macro on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, we'll just have to come up with something.
Because yeah, because it's like, well, you have photos of, let's say, big buildings. You also have large cities that you're trying to take a photo of, large landscapes, you
Hmm.
know, because they're large groups of people. They all have their, it's hard to get that feeling of, I want to show scale and size. With macro, I don't want to say it's easy, but if you see a picture of a bee, a macro picture of a bee, you know how big a bee is,
Yeah.
or a flower. Once you know what it is, you can grasp the scale. But if you see a picture of a building that's not balanced or rooted in something that you're familiar with, you have no idea. That's why when people say, when they go, let's say, I'm going to be very US centric here, you go to the Grand Canyon, you see pictures of it. But until you're there on the rim and you just see this massiveness in front of you, or again, I'm thinking a lot of US things, but the Three Gorges Dam in China or the Hoover Dam in the US,
Hmm.
these absolutely massive, you know, architectural and structural things. It's really hard to get a picture of that, to see a picture and say, okay, I understand the scale. Same thing with large buildings. If anyone's seen pictures of, say, Shanghai in China, and you can, like, I would say something I saw recently kind of blew my mind. A picture from 2000 to a picture of 2024, and the amount of skyscrapers that are there now that weren't there 24
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get a scale of when you see skyscrapers, you know, because you
Hmm.
don't have, or even, let's say, for the US, New York City or Toronto. it's hard to get a scale of, let's say, the CN Tower, which is a very massive building.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
if you go to Toronto and you either being up top and looking down through the glass floor,
Hmm.
which is unnerving, or being from the bottom and looking up, then you can get a scale of it. But when you're taking a photo, or let's say, like I said, Skyline, New York City, you have One World Trade Center, which is um, for reasons 1,776 feet tall.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get a scale of it because there's so many other tall buildings, it doesn't really stick up as much. So that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
also my thought of dealing with big items, but also not because it's either you're a lot of times in the middle of something big and
Hmm.
it's hard to get that scale, or you're far away from something big. Again, it's hard to get that over feeling of what you're actually seeing there
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to get that scale and what your different options are. So that was kind
Yeah.
of the idea behind the thought of photographing big.
Well, I think it's a great idea. And so in our shared note, we got a few, talking points that we can
Mm-hmm.
hit here. And the first one is, I mean, if something's too large for the viewfinder, which in a lot of cases this is what's going to happen. One of the things you can do with your iPhone is use panorama mode.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pull up a picture that I dug out today. And this is let me see here. There we are. Um, get ready to share my screen. So this was a panel that I did of a big sand pile in the out in the quarry behind my parents' place.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle owns this great big quarry, and
Mm.
this is a big pile of sand. And I thought, that looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no way I was going to get this. There
Oh
was
no.
no ultra wide, no wide angle lens big enough to get this. And so I did a panel in panel mode, and uh, it gets the whole thing in.
Yeah.
Now, to give you a sense of scale, if I was to be standing in front of this, I might be about a fifth of the way up. Like
Wow.
this is a massive
Wow.
pile of sand. And so, so the panoramic mode, um, I think I might have another one. I'm not sure.
Okay. But one thing is the one thing you have to watch out for pano. First of all, make sure you're moving slowly enough.
Yeah.
And the iPhone will let you know. It does guide you and say, it gives you on the screen an arrow, and you have
Yep,
to
that's
just
right.
follow the arrow and keep it. And it tells you if you're going too high or too low. And it will tell you if you're going too fast or too slow. And you can do pano with the zero point 0.5 zoom.
Yes.
So,
Now, did you do one of those like those pictures you sent? They're
no, no,
completely unorganized, I will admit,
right,
but
nope,
I've
nope.
got them all here.
Okay,
And so if there's one that you want to talk about, you let me know and I'll
yeah,
I'll find it and pull it up.
okay. I would say no because the one I did try doing in panoramic, unfortunately, there was the bow to it, which can happen when you're doing panoramic. You can't
Yeah,
get that bow look where it actually you can see the curve as you're going along.
right. Okay.
So that was a mistake on my part when I tried to do panoramic. It just did not work out. It
Yeah.
just did not work out.
Well, I mean, it can be tricky. I mean, I don't know how many panels I've thrown away because when I'm going across, sometimes the arrow's supposed to stay right on that line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go just a little above it or a little below it, at just the wrong time or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
when you're done, it could be just a hot
Yeah.
mess. So, Dale Lotherington in the chat just said native panel on iPhone is using 1x or 5x photos and stitching in Photoshop in RAW.
Mm.
Um, is that versus? Like it's covered up by a heart in the chat for some reason.
Yeah, it says yeah, native pano on iPhone
Oh, versus using. Oh yeah,
versus
okay.
using yeah. So I mean that is an option if you're good with Photoshop and you're used to doing it. You know, just
Well,
taking a normal shot and then stitching it together to get that feel there.
yeah. So this brings up a point that I was going to get to further down, but I might as well bring it up
Yeah.
now. And that is this image here of okay, let's just let's just say that instead of doing our recent photos, we're going to be talking about a lot of pictures here.
Right,
So,
right.
so
And
these are
and
going to
if
be
yeah, and as a reminder, if you're using an enhanced player like the iPhone
the Apple
podcast app,
Podcast app.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Apple Podcast app or
Overcast,
Overcast,
Pocket
yeah.
Cast, some of those,
Yep,
yeah.
all yeah, the images will be on screen.
Right.
And
And
of
if you
course
if
the
if you're
website
watching the
and
YouTube video, then bang, you're getting them now. But yes, they'll be on the website later. But this one here, this was a four shot vertical, like four vertical shots
mhm,
that I stitched together in Affinity Photo. Like you don't have to have Photoshop to do this, but if you have and it was on my desktop that I did the stitching. So you don't have to have a desktop or you don't have to have Photoshop. You can have an app or a program that can do the stitching, but when you shoot these, you just have to make sure you leave a good overlap where it'll pick up, you know,
mhm,
the similar points and it's a lot better to stitch them that way. So uh if so I did this shot this way because I wanted to go old school. I wanted to go, the way I used to do it with my DSLR.
mhm,
And um and I think it turned out pretty well. The nice thing about using the iPhone for stuff like this is, and this is kind of off topic, but if had I used a DSLR, the waterfall would have been, exposed properly, but the sky would have been blown out behind. Whereas the iPhone does a
mhm,
really good job with that, pixel by pixel
mhm.
processing, and it gets everything. And um, the exposure latitude is off the charts with these things. Um, but I mean that's another way to do a panorama. And in our notes, the third point was stitching apps.
Right.
There used to be a great app on the iPhone. It was called Auto Stitch,
Mhm,
and I think I died inside when they did not go to 64-bit when whatever version of
mm,
iOS it was that came out. It forced app developers to change everything to 64-bit from
mhm,
32, and AutoStitch never did it. It was so phenomenal. I remember talking about it on Tiny Shutter with, Matt Hoffman loved that program,
mhm.
and it's just so sad that you know, it didn't carry on
Right.
because as of like when it went away, I don't think there was any decent stitching apps on the iPhone.
No,
Um,
and probably a lot of them died off when not only the 32 to 64, but when the iPhone just got so much better with piano.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Because
Yeah,
it did get a lot in the beginning, it was you could easily tell what was a
yeah.
piano with an iPhone because of different exposures. And you could see it almost block by block as it's going across the screen or vertically. You can do a piano vertically.
Yeah,
Don't
oh
forget you
yeah.
can do that. That's something in the last 3 or 4 years with iPhones. Before you couldn't, but now you can. Just turn
Yeah.
your phone and you can do a vertical piano. It just got so much better with, like I said, the exposure from going along and stitching it and getting rid of the bow,
Hmm.
the bend in the photo, getting rid of that. It's gotten so much better. I can only see that some companies said, yeah, we're one trick pony,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's not a massive need for it.
Yeah, that's right. Um, so there's panel mode and
Yep.
like you said, big things. when it comes to doing something like really big,
Hmm.
you could do vertical, which is,
Right.
you know, really cool.
And then this is,
Um,
like I said, also do the point 0.5 zoom, because most of the time with pano, it's going to crop off the top and the bottom anyway, the way
yeah.
pano works. So zoom out, you're going to zoom in the middle. In the middle is the worst part about the ultra wide lenses are the edges.
Hmm.
The distortion, the issues that almost everyone has. You don't have to worry about that with pano because it's taking the middle of the image anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
right.
you can always crop yourself, you
Yeah,
know. That way you're guaranteeing that you don't have to worry about the top or bottom being chopped off when you're doing a pano.
yeah. And just one last point on panels is Dale says in the chat, long exposure panels are cool. Shoot via um uh oh, even longer, I think is what he meant. It
Okay.
says long
Okay.
or a long exposure app. I know
Okay.
he's a real proponent of even longer, and stitch it together in Photoshop or or
Mm,
whatever program you stitch it with. But yes, you can do long exposure panels, like the Milky Way or something like that. Like,
mm,
you know, I mean, Dale's getting really good at that stuff. If you haven't seen his stuff in the Bloody Legends Facebook group, check it out. A
mm.
lot of pretty cool stuff that he's done. And um, but panel the panel mode in the iPhone is so cool.
Yep.
And if I can only offer one tip on that, that would be to tap and hold on the screen to lock exposure. I mean, I know it's getting the iPhone's getting very good at controlling the exposures throughout the panel, but if you lock exposure and then start across the scene, it will actually be better. You won't see no banding from the exposure changing or whatever, especially if there's a big difference in the lighting, like like a heavy cloud cover here and light cloud cover there type of thing. It'll give you a lot better panoramic. Um, So the next point is wide angle lens attachments, but you know what? With the ultra wide, you don't necessarily need a wide angle lens on
Yeah.
your main camera. So you've got a couple here. Just let me know which one you think you want to show
Okay.
here.
Well, I mean, showing
Or
a
I
good
could
one,
pull one up.
let's say,
Okay.
I would say the two that show kind of the difference between the two lenses. The ones that have the arch going over the street.
Okay. But I've got this one already pulled up, so
Oh, okay. We'll go this one. Okay. Okay. So now this one, and we're going to go a little out of thing for the order I saw the notes, because this
okay.
also
Yeah,
talks
yeah,
about this is
we're gonna be all
yeah.
over the place.
Okay. So this is a little bit of zoom I'm going to talk about, and the elevated perspective. So this was taken last weekend, and we went up to the Mon Incline. And this is, at one time, Pittsburgh had, I forget how many, but there were double digits number of inclines in the city, because you had to get from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill. And all the inclines were built in the 1800s. So pre car, and you had a horse and buggy, and you need to move stuff from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. So basically, and you hear people call these funiculars. And next to this one, there was actual a freight one. So the one that's still remaining is a people one. This one's from 1880. I think 1883 it was built. But there was a freight one where you could put your horse and your horse drawn um, item on it, delivery vehicle, and take it from the bottom to the top.
Oh,
So
okay,
we're
yeah.
talking a good amount of altitude coming up here. And
Yeah,
this
didn't you
is
say one time it was about 800 feet or so?
it's something like that. I think the track may be 800 feet and the altitude's maybe 600.
Oh, okay.
It's something like that. It's pretty
Yeah.
high up though. It is pretty high up. And so this one was taken with, I believe, let me just double check here. This one was taken with it was 16 by 9 shot, but this was taken with just the normal wide camera, I
Oh, okay.
believe. So let me actually double check while we're looking at this. And this just kind of shows a good hunk of downtown Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So you have the modern skyscrapers there, semi modern skyscrapers. And this is something where I hate to say, always kind of keep in mind what's considered modern depending on how old you are. Uh, it sounds kind of bad, but it's true. The glass building on the left that looks like a castle.
Oh yeah.
That was built in '84, so that's new-ish.
Hmm.
The buildings that are a little more on the right, the silver one and the one right next to it, which is kind of gold looking, even though it isn't, that was built also in the early '80s.
Oh yeah.
And the big building that's kind of black behind everything, that was built in '70. So we're still talking, we're talking a 50-year-old building, but it's, again, we're talking pretty high, tall skyscrapers. The one that's the black one um, is 60 some stories high.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So if
it's a
you were
tall one.
down at the bottom, you
You would
probably
definitely notice it. Yeah.
yeah, but you might have a hard time getting all this in the frame.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. This was actually taken with the ultra wide. I was just double checking. That was actually taken with the ultra wide
Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah.
to get the whole sweep. So again,
Yeah.
in terms of zoom perspective, this is kind of getting the whole. Sometimes you want to, like, you get a grouping of very big things, but this is kind of putting it in perspective of what's around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with the river in the foreground, the green of the trees all the way around it, kind of framing on the bottom,
Hmm.
and in the background you see a little bit of the green of the hills. So it's putting it as it's kind of framing it. That was my idea for how that photo was. So you would have downtown kind of framed around the green, with the green
Yeah.
around it.
Now, isn't it so nice that stick season is over?
Oh, so much nicer. It is so nice.
It's so nice to see the
Oh,
leaves on the trees. Oh man. Anyway, that's
assuming your allergies aren't too bad, but yes, it's very nice to
you know
have that.
what? Mine usually kind of act up this time of year, but this year it hasn't been too bad.
Mm,
You know, I don't know if the pollen is still coming this way or what the deal is, but anyway.
mm.
Um, so
Now,
that was a good wide shot from above.
right now, the other thing I want to show next, though,
Yep.
the next one down should be more of an up close view of a few buildings with the bridge in the foreground.
Yep.
Okay, so that was taken from the same perspective, the same place. Yep, that one. So that's taken from the same vantage point, the exact same location I took the other picture from. It's just that this is the 3x zoom
Right. Yeah.
in my 13. So you get a different, even though same location, having that zoom in and framing, you get a different feel for the scale of the buildings.
Yeah. And of course you get a lot more detail too.
Exactly, exactly. And so you have, like I said, I was able to get to where you can see the entire bridge. And if you kind of think about what the other image was, you can have, that where that bridge was right there. So this kind of gives you a scale, the difference of the buildings here. Where here you also have you can, like I said, you can see more of the detail. So it depends if you're trying to get a feel for like an overwhelming size of what's happening,
Hmm.
or you want to see detail and maybe using the zoom to show the difference here. And also, if you go for the next photo,
Okay.
that was taken with Ruth's 15 Pro Max.
Now, is that the church?
Uh, you may no. It should be almost the exact same shot as the last one, but even further in.
Okay. Okay, start talking about it and I'll
Okay,
find it.
okay. So this one, even though this is the difference between a 3x and a 5x zoom, is that
Right.
again, same location. I basically was there and said, "Hun, give me your phone."
Yep.
And the difference here is it's even a further, I don't want to say crop in, but it's a further zoom in. So you can see more detail here.
Hmm.
And you can get a different feel for the different perspective of the buildings. Where when we had that far off shot, this little grouping of buildings looked a certain way. And now that we're zoomed in, you can get a feel for the different heights of the different buildings where you have the building that says UPMC, which is the US Steel building.
Hmm.
It kind of, and you can see the difference in height a little bit better here now that we're zoomed in. And if you look at the building that's right in front of it looks like a newer skyscraper, but right in front of it, it's an old, it has the old, not brick, but the old
Looks like a
rock.
bell tower.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually the county courthouse,
Oh, okay.
built in like an 1880 something or
But
another.
see, you wouldn't know any of this. I mean, unless you knew Pittsburgh, but I mean,
Well,
you
yeah.
wouldn't know that these buildings were there from that first shot
No,
because you're
no,
not going to get this perspective.
exactly.
Yeah.
And just to know that also, and of course, this, like I said, this is someone who's familiar. That was the tall that building, which looks so tiny now, was the tallest building in the city
Yeah.
for a lot of years.
Yeah. That's crazy.
it was the big clock tower county courthouse, which
Yeah.
was the seat of, not necessarily the seat of government, that's the city county building, but it was like all the courts were there. And now it's kind of hidden in with these modern skyscrapers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of buried in there.
Yeah, but you still get a view from it, but also being zoomed in like this, you get a feel for, you still can see like cars in the foreground. So you still get
Yeah.
a grounding feel of how big these buildings are,
Yeah.
which you
Yeah.
do
That's right.
miss with the far away photo, which again, that can be useful too in terms of the overall view, get a feel for how it's placed. But when you can zoom in, but it's not like just get the building, it gives you a nice feel of, and when you zoom in like this, you can see literally here we have a building from the 1800s. Just to the right of it, it looks like, I think I don't know if it's sandstone, but it's a lighter,
Hmm.
like granite material. That's from the 1930s. The building a little bit ahead of that, I think, is from the 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
And then you have the skyscrapers from the 80s and 70s. So getting the zoom in here, not only do you get a nice sense of scale, but you have a nice little differentiation between, the different types of buildings and the different ages and seeing what's happening here.
Yeah.
So, like
Yeah.
I said, and this is the one advantage of, let's say, an iPhone. And I don't want to just say only for iPhone only, because of, see, Android phones also you can do this with. But saying I'm in one location, if you have a traditional camera with interchangeable lenses, you're going to take that picture. You may zoom, but it doesn't have that large jump a lot of times. Where if you do want to have a large jump, oh, I got to take this lens off, put a new lens on, do this. I have to make sure I have both lenses with me. If you want to have a super zoom lens, it's just a hassle. Here you can say, okay, I'm going to go from literally a 10x range here, from zero point 0.5 to 5,
Yeah.
and getting a different feel for, and I would say do everything. And I see Will's saying about he prefers zoomed in shots because they're simpler,
Hmm.
and that is a problem with a lot of shots where you're trying to get an overall feel for something. It gets busy because there's so much going on. You don't know
Yeah.
what you're focusing on.
Well, kind of to that point. I've just pulled up a couple that I have, and they're both of the CN Tower that you mentioned earlier.
Mm.
And
Oh,
this was Now we're jumping from our show notes here. We're jumping everywhere because part of it, like the last talking point was going to be editing. And and it's so after taking the photo, you can use editing tools to enhance the image, adjust perspective, and fine-tune details. Well, yes, that's true. This one was taken through some heavy glass, so the color was
Mm,
completely off. It was like, how when you try to take you remember last show, Ruth took that picture of that tree through the car window,
mm-hmm.
and the color was off. Well, this was like that, except it was really off. So made it black and white. And to jump back to the wide angle thing, this one was actually taken with my 10s Max, and I used a wide angle lens, and I think it might have been a moment lens, or it might have been a reflex. I'm not sure.
Mm,
Um, but to get that whole tower in, I had to use that wide angle lens because that phone did not have the ultra wide camera. So, you know, but it really distorts what it actually looks like, but that's to be expected when you're shooting up, that high.
mm-hmm.
But on the other side of the coin, I took one with a telephoto lens on that phone
Mm,
and was able to get like your last couple of shots, get closer into to get a better look at it into some of the detail and whatnot. I mean it's not quite like the 5X on the 15 Pro Max. And if you'll excuse me, I'm just gonna maybe sneeze here. Hold on.
nope.
Oh, it had stage fright. Um, so but with the 2X telephoto lens, um, I was able to get a little closer, and I think I might have had it on the 2X camera. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find that out. But yes, it was the 2X camera. So I had the telephoto on the 2X camera, which got it in, much closer. And you know what? It's probably close to what the 5X would give on the 15 Pro Max. But you know what? It gives you a better look, gives you more detail, and it does the job.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not put that lens over that camera, this would have been a completely different shot, one
Yeah.
that I would not have wanted to even share because it would have been just,
Mm-hmm.
to me, uninteresting. Um, so Maurice Backley is in the chat.
Ah.
So Will said I prefer
Mm,
zoom shots because they're simpler. Wide angle, too much to look is often too much to look at, like I just said,
yeah.
and often it's not clear what the subject is supposed to be. So yeah, that's case in point with if I had not used the zoom on that, or the telephoto on that last shot.
Mm-hmm.
Maurice says, agreed, making wide shots compelling is a challenge that many don't appreciate. And he also says, I'm fond of my moment fisheye for big buildings. You get distortion, but it's fun and can grab just about 180 degrees field of view. And that's true. Uh, with the fisheye, you can have a lot of fun with that thing. And I never thought I would like it, but once I tried one, I thought, yeah, this could be pretty cool. You can really have some fun with making some creative versions of an image that you might not otherwise even imagine doing. Um, so let's dig up another one. Okay,
Okay.
here's another one where I used the wide angle over the main camera. And this was when I was in
Mm,
Toronto. I was at this auto show. And I found it so much easier to get shots of the cars when I had the wide angle on because I was able to get close enough that I wouldn't have any people in front of me.
mm,
There's people on the back side of the car, which is fine.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. But as
Yeah.
long as I could see the whole car, that's all that I was worried about.
Mm,
And had I not had a wide angle um, lens to use to get that wider, like this is basically like using the ultra wide um, without a lens. But had I not had that lens, I would have struggled to get a shot like this because I would have had to be far back. I would have had to have been far enough back that
Mhm.
I would almost be certain there'd be people in the way and I'd be standing there waiting and waiting and waiting
Mhm.
because, they've got every right to see it just as much as I do. And I don't like, you know, asking people to move because, they're taking their own pictures and everything else. But I was able to just get close enough, even hold the phone in some at arm's length if I had to, and get the shot. And I took a lot of pictures at this car show. This is a few years ago, but I took a lot of pictures at this car show like that, just so I can get the shot and move on.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a pretty cool thing about those lenses and trying to shoot something big. Like, this is a NASCAR stock car. It's not no tiny machine. It's a
Oh
good
no.
size. And so it's really helpful
Mhm.
using those lenses.
And like you
Uh
said, if you don't have the attachment lens, definitely try the wide lens, the ultra wide.
yeah, for sure.
And like I said, you can get closer, use the ultra wide. And the only thing you may have to watch out for is when you're changing zooms like that. And this is something we mentioned before. You are changing how the depth field, not necessarily depth of field, but not like bokeh depth of field, but how stretched out an image feels.
Yeah.
So if you're using the ultra wide versus the tele lens, it will, even if you back up and get the size of the image the same, it'll feel different. So it's just
Yeah.
something to think in mind while you're composing. But again, the advantage of the iPhone or phone photography is we can see what it's going to look like before we take the photo.
Yeah, that's right.
You have a massive screen. Even the small iPhones, 6.1, you have a
Hmm.
massive screen so you can select it and think, okay, do I want to make it look like this or not? And there's within the photo app and within third party apps ways you can change the perspective and geometry of the photo itself if you want to, let's say, correct it if it's a little too stretched out or something on that nature.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I've got four of yours up here.
Okay.
And we'll just kind of go through them and you can kind of touch on those
Yep.
points that you just mentioned with each of these.
Okay. Now, this is a pair of photos. One I took with the regular there, and one I took with the ultra wide.
Hmm.
And on the right is the county courthouse from we saw earlier.
Oh yeah.
That building with the really with the at the time very tall clock tower. And this was connected to the old jail, which is on your left. They did build a newer jail, so it's no longer used as a jail, but the idea was that you would go to court on the building on your right, and if you were
And
found
take a walk
guilty,
across the road and
the
you find
they
your
the bridge of
place of
size.
residence.
Exactly. You would go over the bridge of size, and you would go over the bridge, and you would go right to the jail,
Yeah.
and it would be separated but still interconnected.
And if you were
Uh,
lucky, you would be able to walk out that door just at the bottom right there
and leave
and
exactly.
leave.
So, like I said, this is like I said, just a normal street. One nice thing is because this I took this marathon morning, a lot of these streets were shut down, so I didn't have to worry about
Ah,
getting
yeah.
run over. Notice
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the road.
Yeah, yeah.
So this road was closed off because this is where if you see the road that's kind of crossing in front of us,
Hmm.
that's actual road that you actually finish on.
Oh yeah.
Um, So uh, then I tried to do a shot with the ultra wide,
Yeah.
same location, and to get a different feel because this gives you a feel for a little bit more how big these buildings are. Because you're seeing the rough hewn stonework on either side as it's going down, and you get a feel for how tall these walls are, which makes sense because it's a jail.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
you
for
want
sure.
the idea is that those are literally the walls to keep people in the jail.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get a feel for just how, you know, you can see there's very few windows over there, and how commanding that structure is, and getting
Hmm.
a and just the difference between the up close, where the focus is more on the bridge, and this is where the focus is more on the buildings on either side, where the bridge is a much smaller feature here.
Yeah, yeah. So, the first one gives you a little better detail, but the second one gives you a little better perspective as to
Mm-hmm.
size.
Exactly.
Um, this next one,
Yeah, this is.
it's basically looking up the face of a building.
Mm-hmm. And I love the. This is an Art Deco building, and I love the mural that's part of the window down below,
Yeah.
of the steel worker pouring steel.
Hmm.
And I wanted to do this because you also get a feel for how vertical the building is, with just the window on top of window on top of window on top of window stacked above it.
Yeah.
So not only are the windows kind of vertically built, but you also have the stacking of windows. And one thing I love about older skyscrapers, the details that you can see on each floor. So it isn't just bland. You can see there's little detail on each floor there in
Yeah.
the actual
In
woodwork
between the windows. Yeah.
in between the windows. Yeah, in the actual stonework. So you can see the detail they put into each of those buildings that were going up. But again, here you have a feeling for scale because of the windows,
Hmm.
the individual windows and floors, but you have that scale of it just keeps. And because I did crop it, that basically is the top of the building.
Okay,
So
so I wanted to make the point that it kind of leaves a sense of mystery because
right,
we didn't know that that's the top,
exactly,
and
exactly,
I mean, unless you knew the building, right?
right.
And I mean that I honestly thought that that was just a small portion of a very tall
Mm-hmm.
building, which it very well could
And
have
you
been.
would know, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So if you're trying to get a feel for something big, you don't have to get all of it in there.
yeah, that's
Like you
right.
said, you can leave just kind of chop there and to show what's going on.
Yeah,
Like I said, there's that little mystery of how tall is this building?
yeah, that's right. The next one is I think you've shared this church before,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember that red door.
Yeah. Yep. And this is just this is just actually right next to that building
Oh, okay.
from the earlier photos. And I took this partially. You can see the scale of the church, but you can also see the new skyscraper, right, the all glass new skyscraper right behind it.
Hmm.
So you do see, and you can see the skyscraper to the right. So you can get a scale for, even though this is a decent sized church, and the spire's up there pretty tall.
Yeah,
You can still see where it fits in with the rest. And I wanted to get people in the picture too.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
everything. If you want to do something big, if you can get people in there, that way it kind of, you get a feeling for how it's connected up to everything else.
Yeah, yeah, a real sense of scale for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I mean, the door, the red doors, you could pretty well kind of tell how big they are, but not really because they look like they're pretty big doors. But
Yeah.
at least,
Yeah.
and you can see the handles, so that gives you kind of an idea of how big they
Mm-hmm.
are. But having the people in the frame really helps, that's for sure. So let's see. I'll see if I can find a couple more here. Um, okay, here's a couple. And again, this is kind of almost what we were just talking about, um, with a closer look at some detail, and then a little further back.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So another church. And this is their main entrance to the church. And I love, again, this is something that hopefully newer buildings will get back to is the little detail.
Yeah.
You can see on the door the metal work, the glass, the stonework on the arch surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you do have that scale of you can see the actual functional doors, and you that gives you a scale for how big this arch is. This is a two-story entrance, if you will,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
elevated like a half a story up when you look at the steps going up.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a feel for, again, using the clues that you can do here. You still have a grounding of size. So
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
see. Also, it gives you how big those, where it says Smithfield on the announcement boards.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can see the doors there, and these things are a good 4 feet big,
Like wide?
tall. The not the doors, but on the left and right at the bottom
Oh,
of the
oh, oh,
arch,
the signs.
the
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
signage. Yeah, the
Oh,
signage.
yeah.
So you can see these are not like little signs they have. Those are decent because they have to make it where you can see it from the main street.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have those kind of as an anchor there. And the way they have in place with the arch going around, you see the little detail in, it's almost concentric arches here, an
Mm-hmm.
arch within an arch with all the little details.
Yeah.
And the next one I took was the exact same location, just looking up.
Yeah.
So, and if this church is there's it's an older church and there's some structural issues with it. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
why there's the netting over it, just to make
So,
sure nothing falls on people.
yeah. Yeah.
But you can see where this, like I said, just like you did with the CN tower, you have that straight vertical up look.
Mm-hmm.
And these were both taken on the ultra wide.
Oh, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a matter of I did go into I'm trying to remember if it was no, it was the base camera. It was the Photos app, and did a little bit of correction for the tilt
Okay.
to make it a little more vertical.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Also, just the difference between looking up and looking straight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just gain that perspective. But just here where you have the leading lines kind of leading straight up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Um,
Oh,
you know,
Dale said about Babushka Doll Church. Uh, yeah. Well, you know what? Around Pittsburgh, there's a lot of babushka churches. Eastern Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Ukrainian Orthodox. There's still the little old ladies wearing the babushkas when the weather's not quite right
oh
over
yeah.
their head. Oh yeah, making the pierogies by hand. So yeah.
And Shane says, is that where Greg's Facebook profile pic was taken? No, I have never been to Pittsburgh. Uh, um, yeah, so Will says he only has an iPhone 12 Pro Max and no fisheye add-on, but he has an Insta360 Flow gimbal,
Mm.
which will do 360-degree shots, which can be quite fun. Yes, I
Yes.
agree. You know what? I saw a uh I think it might have been an Instagram reel where somebody put that thing on their dog's head somehow, and then the dog started running, and then everything is so like wide
Mm-hmm.
angle-ish that it's like it was running on a ball, and then everything around it was sky. Like it was really, really cool. I wish I knew who it was. I would save it and put a link out there, but I just don't. It's probably gone now, but it was really cool how it worked. Um, let's see here. We'll just try to hit a couple more here. Oh, okay. Here's a good one. And probably 150 some people might not want me to do this, but too damn bad.
Ooh.
Because this was one that I took at a family reunion last summer. And so this was with my 14 Pro Max, and I counted the number of people in this shot, and I think it was something like 168, but I'm not sure.
Mm,
I ain't gonna count them again.
mm,
But this is all on my mom's side, and we had a big reunion to celebrate, like my mom and her brothers and sisters, the ones that are remaining. We wanted to celebrate them, before
right.
any more of them passed
Oh
on,
yeah.
because my mom's almost 80 years old, so that gives you an idea of how old a lot of them are. A lot of them are older, and you know, there's there was there was 7 boys and 7 girls in her family. So, but one of my aunts died well before I was even born. She was 2 or 3 years old. So basically, my mom grew up with 7 brothers and 5 sisters.
Mm,
And so there's some of them in this picture, but then there's a lot of my cousins, my first cousins, my second cousins, and I probably got some third cousins in this picture. But and this was just with the normal, like the main camera on my 14 Pro Max. And
mm,
of course, I use 48 megapixel to do it, rather than leaving it at 12. And that way I can get as much detail out of it as possible. But so that's another kind of thing to remember when shooting big things, like especially if there's a lot of people involved, is if you have a phone that's capable of the 48 megapixel
mm-hmm.
camera, use it, because
Yeah.
you're going to want to get as much detail as you can. I have a cousin who had her DSLR, and I was trying to compose a shot. I had my phone in the tripod and all this stuff, and she says, "Do you want to use this?" And I said, "Well, this is 48 megapixels." She says, "Oh, never mind," because her DSLR probably had 18 megapixel, I think. I forget what kind it was now,
Mm-hmm.
but when she when I told her it was 48 megapixels, she goes, "Oh, no, no, never mind." I walked away. Um, it would have been nice to have the wide angle lens that she had. She had a good lens,
Oh yeah.
but hey, this is just a shot out of the main camera on the 14 Pro Max, and I think it worked out
Mm.
pretty well. The
Oh
the, the
yeah.
biggest challenge, and as you can see, I'm in that image on the left in that striped shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So
Far
I
left.
had to
Yep.
yell at everybody to look at the phone at the same time. And and this is not a shot where I took bits of this one and bits of that one and put them together to make sure everybody was looking. Everybody actually behaved themselves quite nicely. And that's a big
Which is an
ask
issue.
from my family.
Yeah, well, not only I wouldn't say just your family, but I see a good amount of kids there,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the problem. As they say, never work with kids or pets.
Yeah, that's right. Um, And you know what? There were still some people on the property that weren't even in this picture. So this isn't all of them that were
Wow.
at this event. This is probably about 90% of them. But so, to come back to taking a photo of a big thing, well, like a big family, I would suggest using the 48 megapixel if you have it. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't, then that's okay too. But it really helps in capturing some of the detail, because I could zoom in on this and still see um, the detail quite nicely. And I don't want to do that, because probably none of these people want to be appearing on somebody's iPhone screen during a podcast. But like I said, it's too darn bad. But that's
Mm-hmm.
it's part of the fun of trying to capture large things.
Right.
um, you know,
But like I said, large. We're not just talking about large structures. We're talking large amount of people, and that is an
yeah,
issue. That is an issue. Like I said, family reunions. If you want to, let's say you're going to a concert and you want to get a picture of the crowd,
yeah, that's
but
right.
you want to make sure that you're getting a picture where you're showing how big the crowd is.
Yeah, yeah,
The ultra wide can make a big difference. I can see where the like a fish lens, the fisheye lens would make a massive difference on
yeah.
how you do there.
Yeah, well, and so we'll just do this one to close off with, and this is one of yours, kind of touching on the subject of people again.
Ouch.
And this was probably from the event on the weekend.
It was, yes. So as I said, I did the back end of the marathon, and this was the main start line right before the start. So you got around 15,000 people here on the city street,
Oh,
kind of
wow.
shoved. Yeah.
That's a big
Uh
crowd.
it's pretty massive. And there I took a couple of the normal shots where you kind of, look one way, you can see all the people in their heads, and you look the other way, you can see all the people. But I wanted to do something that was a little different. So here there was some scaffolding they had up to use for like monitors and speakers, so people back here, literally a half mile away from the start line, could hear what was going on. And these are just people, and it was drizzling. That's why you see people with like plastic bags over them and raincoats they're going to get rid of soon. Just waiting for the start.
Yeah.
And they normally don't. And the fence was a little moved, so I moved over here. I probably shouldn't have been here, but no one was paying attention. And if someone told me to move, I would have moved. But I just like the feel of, first of all, if you look off to the left, you really don't see an end of people.
No, that's right.
There's no beginning or end of line here. I would say there are a few photos that the marathon people put out that were the overhead helicopter shots,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
where you can see literally the entire crowd stretched out.
No, that's a good perspective right there.
Exactly. But not available to me. So I figured, again, getting that grounding image, just to get a feel for it, you can see people through the structure here.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like, this way you could see the people a little bit more than just a mass of people. You can see like individual people here talking to each other, some people looking around, some people looking ahead.
Yeah. And you
You
can
know,
almost put a caption on each one of them, like,
exactly.
oh, what am I getting
Yeah.
myself into?
Is that, well, yeah, a lot of it's like, why am I doing this again?
Yeah, yeah,
Or when is the rain going to stop? Is the
yeah.
rain going to stop? Is it going to get worse? They said it. Really, we just had a cat go through.
Ah.
Is it going to get worse? You know, so you have that feel. You can still get that feel of size of crowd, but being there, you get a feel for what the people, the actual humans that make up the crowd.
Hey, there goes the cat again.
Yes.
I'm glad I wasn't screen sharing for that one. Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, so
Oh no, you know what? I just saw it on YouTube because I do we do have YouTube open.
yeah,
Yeah, you saw her.
yep. Yeah, there's a little delay on YouTube, but it's definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I might even, find that frame and screenshot it. Just because. Um, so, I think we covered all the
Mm-hmm.
points. And so just to recap, the points were this: use panorama mode,
Yeah.
wide angle lens attachments, stitching apps, elevated perspective, external lighting. Okay, so that's one we did not cover, but we didn't really have any pictures that covered that. Basically the point was ensure good lighting conditions or use external lighting sources to properly illuminate the entire object.
Mm-hmm.
For a really big object, you need a pretty big light.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good example for that, and I don't have a picture for it, at least not handy, but Shane Moston in a couple of his videos showed how to light paint a tree while doing an astro shot,
Yeah.
or a truck, or a tractor or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
um, look them up on YouTube, folks. There's a link in the description. Um, that is a great way to use an external light source on to illuminate the subject, and isolate it from the background. In fact, that's probably the best example because if you didn't do that, you'd end up with a silhouette to begin with, which is, I mean, it can work. Uh,
but it's
Ron
probably not what you're
Duvall did
looking for.
that
Yeah.
in the Bloody Legends group. He put a picture of the Milky Way, I think it was, and in the
Mm.
foreground, he had a silhouette of some. I'm assuming they're like was a dinosaur skeleton, and with a
Oh.
line going down to like a person. It's like the person's taking a dinosaur for the walk, and that
Oh,
was the
okay.
foreground, and it was just a silhouette of that, and it really worked well. Um, but if you lit that up, it would change the whole dynamic of the image. But when you have
Hmm.
like a vehicle or a tree, excuse me, or a tree or something like that, and if you light that up, I think it really makes for an interesting shot. I mean, I did it with my car one time a couple of years ago, the Milky Way up there, and then the car in the foreground or whatever. And if you do it, with just the right amount of light, it could turn out pretty well. So
Hmm.
that's a good example of external lighting. The next point that we covered, or next talking point, was distance and zoom. Well, we covered that really well because
Yeah.
we had a lot of good examples there. And then editing, my example of the CN Tower,
Hmm.
and you could say too with that church entrance, you adjusted the
Yeah.
skew to make it a little more vertical, but it looked good because it still gave you a sense of scale, especially the second shot when you're looking up.
Hmm.
Gave you a good sense of scale, and and that's a little bit of editing just to do that, and right in the Photos app. So, um, and the last thing that's in our show notes here was just a little reminder. Remember to stabilize your phone to avoid blurry shots. Experiment with different techniques to find what works best for your specific situation. And I think that's key. Each each um each instance or each case is different, so you got to kind of use whatever's going to be best for that subject. Like if you have a big like I have pictures of a ship. We have a lake freighter
Mm.
in our harbor,
Hmm.
and I had a couple of pictures. I don't know where I even put them now, but I had a couple of pictures of that I was going to show. One was a little further back to show how big it is in the harbor, and then the other one was with the 5X, basically the boat. It was the picture. That was it. It was just to show you
Okay.
how big it was. But every instance has their purpose and their way of getting
Hmm.
it to show something big. And before I mumble any further, I think we'll just call it a night.
No, sounds good.
Yeah,
I think we went over a lot of details. We
I
went
think
over a
so.
lot of
Yeah,
details. Yeah.
yeah, and I basically we weren't going to do our recent photos because we had so many pictures to talk about. But to be honest, mine weren't so recent, but yours it looked like they were all fairly
Yeah.
recent
Yeah.
anyway.
My
So
mine were all, and actually when I mentioned the topic, I went out of my way to kind of get pictures that I thought would match.
yeah, yeah, and that's what I did with the lake freighter down in the harbor. But um,
Hmm.
stupid me, I don't remember where I put them, and I was so we were late getting on the air tonight for one because I
Well,
was so busy today. I just didn't have time to get everything done. But
it happens, you
um,
know.
oh yeah, but I'm just really excited that this is available soon in print. There's a link in the description for the version on Apple Books. Thank you to each and everyone who's bought one so far. And again, I will let everybody know when the print version is available. And by the next show, hopefully by the next show, I'll have my ones that I've ordered with the updated
Mm.
cover and stuff on it too, so I can show that. But anyway, I guess we'll call it a night at that. And thanks for this idea, Dave. It
Yeah,
was a good
welcome.
one. I've talked about macro a lot,
Well,
but it's nice to kind of go at the other end of the scale.
yeah.
And we got to think of a name of this type of photography.
Hmm.
You know, anybody that sees this or hears this, if you have any ideas, let us know. Maybe we could start a trend of some sort. Um,
Actually get named
that
for something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all righty. Well, I don't think we need to really tell everybody where they can find us because it's all in the show notes. If you want to see where Dave is or where I am, the links are all there.
Check it out.
And yeah, and I guess you know, we fly by the seat of our pants on this show, and for the next episode, we'll likely think of something about 2 days before to talk about. That's how we roll. So anyway, thanks, Dave.
Welcome, Greg.
Great chat as
Oh,
always,
oh
and
yeah, love doing
congratulations
this.
on your running this weekend. And
Ah, thank you.
uh, again, good on you, man. I couldn't do it, but
Yeah, thanks.
um, so you said you signed up for the next one for next
Hmm.
year, but and the next run is in September, but you must have something before between now and then.
Well, I mean, I have the I consider that my next long run.
Right.
Long run being anything longer than a 10K. I have a 5K I've already signed up for in June. And I haven't signed up yet, but I will sign up for three more, probably three more 5Ks before September. They just haven't opened yet. So
Oh yeah.
definitely four 5K races before then. Of course, weekend runs and everything else, but official races. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna get the old bicycle out. Um,
With the
who
weather
knows?
being nice.
Maybe even this week, and see if I can't start my year with my first ride with at least 20K.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's what I'd like to do.
Oof.
Whether my butt will take that or not, I don't know, because it's one of those sport cycling seats and it's not
Ooh,
exactly comfortable. So
wedgie seats.
yeah, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and if you're listening in the auto, thank you, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll see everybody in the next one.
Have a great one.